Welcome to the Too Lazy to Read podcast. This is the latest version of what was attempted years ago as Ricochet Out Loud. 2 Liters 2R is simply designed for those too busy to read. The content is stolen from the Finest newsletter, better known as the Ricochet Daily Shot, written by Fred Cole, edited by John Gabriel. The 2 Liters 2R is a creation by Ricochet member Curious John in an attempt to expand Ricochet. Curious John believe the greatest posts of Ricochet as well as the Daily Shot could be converted into podcast form like the following. This recording is made with the use of 2 websites, from text-to-speech.com and tunes-to-tube.com. If this idea has any legs, it can be harnessed as another source of sponsorship and a revenue stream for Ricochet.com's audio network. Today's 2 Liters 2R is read by John. It was originally written for Thursday, June 1th, 2017. Opening shot. I am the inferior of any man whose right side trample underfoot. Horace Greeley. Hell hath no fury like an ex-FBI director scorned. As things stand now, former FBI Director James Comey plans to publicly testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee, possibly as early as next week. Word is that Comey has spoken with Special Counsel Robert Mueller to make sure his public testimony won't cause problems for the investigation. However, we don't know when it will happen and the details have not been finalized. Most likely Comey will talk about conversations between himself and President Trump, but not the details of the FBI investigation. But since we don't know what he's going to say, the viewing will make for high drama. That's if it happens at all. In theory, President Trump could try to stop Comey from testifying by invoking presidential privilege. However, that comes with some complications. First, it makes it look like Trump has something to hide. Second, it may not work. While courts have previously recognized the president's power to invoke privilege and keep discussions secret, it's not a slam dunk. The network that wasn't. After the suicide bombing in Manchester last week, British authorities began furiously searching for the accomplices of bomber Salman Abedi, working on the assumption that there had been a larger network, possibly with a skilled bomb maker. Now they aren't so sure. Police have gone back through Abedi's movements between when he arrived back in the UK and when he carried out the bombing. Using closed-circuit cameras and telephone records, they were able to figure out who he talked to and what he did. And it turns out he bought all the bomb parts himself and may have been acting alone. Now, police aren't yet ruling out that he had help, and there are several things about his behavior that they're still looking at, but of the 16 people arrested in connection with the attack, 5 have already been released without charges. Wanted, Office Space, must be White House adjacent. They'll never go broke reporting rumors in Washington, especially now. We've been hearing for days, weeks, and months, about a forthcoming White House shakeup, especially among the communications staff. Word is that Trump is planning to bring in former campaign manager Corey Lewandowski to run some kind of communications response team. A war room, if you will. Well, that's one rumor that may have some truth to it. Lewandowski has been spotted around the White House recently, and word is that the Trump team is hunting for office space. They're looking for a spot to build that war room. It probably won't be in the West Wing, but rather next door in the Eisenhower Executive Office building. They've just got to make sure they leave room for an enormous round table with huge maps of the world behind it and a wheelchair-bound guy with sunglasses. The superbugs versus the super antibiotics. Since the 1950s, vancomycin has been used to fight the most serious bacterial infections and was often considered a drug of last resort. However, in the intervening decades, bacteria, being the tricky little creatures they are, have become resistant to it. It's important to understand the mechanism at work. Vancomycin works by binding to a specific peptide that bacteria use to build cell walls. Without the walls, the bacteria die. But over time, some bacteria have evolved, switching one peptide for another, blunting the effectiveness of the drug. This is a serious problem. According to the CDC, 23,000 Americans die from antibiotic-resistant infections each year, although those aren't all from vancomycin-resistant bacteria. Fortunately for all of us, a new report in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences brings word of a new version of the drug, vancomycin 3.0. Wait, what about 2.0? Version 2.0 is a more potent version that attacks those different peptides. Version 3.0 combines the 2.0 with the new element that stops cell wall construction, and a third that makes cell walls leak, all combined together. The thinking is that while bacteria could easily adapt to one, using all three at once would be hard to beat. Estimates are that vancomycin 3.0 is 25,000 times more potent than the old version. This is also a major breakthrough in that it was designed, rather than the usual way that antibiotics are discovered, through trial and error. However, don't book that bachelor party to Haiti just yet. They're still working on the drug, and it's not ready for trials in humans just yet. Researchers are hoping to simplify the recipe, thereby making it cheaper, and it still needs to be tested on animals before it makes its way to humans. Rubber ducky, you're the one. You make sesquicentennials lots of fun. A few years ago, Dutch artist Florentijn Hoffman designed and built a 14-ton, 50-foot-tall duck toy. Because, art, it looks like the kind of thing that Bert would take into the tub, except, yeah, it's freaking 50 feet tall. Cues, art. According to Hoffman, we are living on a planet, we are one family, and the global waters are our bathtub, so it joins people. Well, if you say so, buddy. This year, our friends up in Canada are celebrating their nation's 150th birthday. So for this special occasion, they're bringing in Hoffman's gigantic duck. Because, art? Yeah, we don't get the connection either. It will make its big debut in Ontario on July 1st. Then it will travel across the province. Like you'd expect a 50-foot rubber duck to do for a sesquicentennial celebration. However, this gigantic toy duck tour is not without controversy. See, the Ontario government has kicked in like 121,000 Canadian dollars, or about $90,000 in real money, towards this project. This has caused some politicians there to condemn the expenditure as a waste of taxpayer money, with one calling it an absolute cluster duck. We know. We'll spare you the duck punts because they only get worse from there. Suffice it to say, there's a reason some people go into politics instead of a more productive profession like making mud pies. We see their point, but consider the alternative. After all, what would we do without government? It'd be a 50-foot duck-free Hobbesian hellscape. Sane box. Meanwhile, at Ricochet, we're hearing a lot about whether President Trump will back out of the Paris Climate Agreement. Well, if he's wondering what to do, he should listen to Ricochet contributor Richard Epstein, who has a very clear opinion on the subject. Current media practices are problematic. So says Ricochet contributor Marvin Folkertsma, who explains what they're doing wrong and how it shows their contempt for democratic processes. Whether they like it or not, driverless cars are coming. Ricochet contributor James Pethokoukis talks about the interlocking technology web that will make it happen, and drag congressmen kicking and screaming along with it. New Ricochet podcasts. Did last week's Ricochet podcast leave you wanting more Hemingway? Well, on the latest episode of The Conservatarians, we have a double dose. Both Mally and Mark Hemingway stop by to give their take on the most important issue of the day, COP. We're glad to have them too. They're way more interesting to listen to than John Gabriel. Editor's note: hey, stop that. What's the state of policing in America today? On the latest episode of 10 Blocks, City Journal editor Brian Anderson welcomes Heather MacDonald to discuss the Ferguson effect, protests against conservative speakers, and proactive policing. And be sure to check out Heather's piece in the spring 2017 issue of City Journal, How Trump Can Help the Cops. What is a Nostradamus complex? That's a good question. On the latest episode of the Daily Standard, Fred Barnes stops by to discuss what it is in his new piece on the subject. In honor of Memorial Day, on the latest micro-episode of the Daily Substandard, the boys salute our military with their favorite war movies, plus Vic and JVL remember meeting the legendary R. Lee Ermey. And whether it's a busy morning of neurosurgery or just an afternoon in the lab pitting frogs, you're gonna need some help from a 3-martini lunch. Jim Garrity of National Review and Greg Corambels of Radio America cheer the successful test of a missile defense system and discuss President Trump's Hamlet Act on the Paris Agreement. Today, in history. On this day in 193, the Roman Emperor Didius Julianus was assassinated. In one of the most infamous incidents in Roman history, the Praetorian Guard, after assassinating Emperor Pertinax, auctioned off the throne to the highest bidder. Didius Julianus won the auction, but didn't last long in the big chair. Needless to say, his hold on power was somewhat precarious. On this day in 1792, Kentucky was admitted as the 15th state. 4 years later to the day, Tennessee was admitted as the 16th state. One is known for its fried chicken, one is known for its whiskey. Two of the best decisions America ever made. On this day in 1974, the Heimlich maneuver was first published in the journal Emergency Medicine. In the last 43 years, it's estimated to have saved some 50,000 lives. If it's been a while since you took a first aid class and you need a refresher, here is an easy-to-follow video. We heartily recommend. Dysentery Edition. Oregon Trail, those two words either have special meaning to you or they don't. For many, it simply refers to a historical emigrant route between Missouri and Oregon. However, if you're the right age, it evokes an early computer game that helped define your childhood. And now those kids, who grew up in the 1980s and early 1990s, are adults with jobs, kids, and subscriptions to daily email newsletters. They also have disposable income, which makes them the perfect customers to buy the Oregon Trail board game. Yes, really, this board game masterfully simulates the computer game. Everything from the gravestones you wrote your dead party members' names onto the random death by rattlesnake. And you will die randomly. This is a cooperative game, so if one of you makes it to Oregon, everyone wins. Which is good because, yeah, you died early and often in this game. We've even seen someone get killed on the first play of the game. Yes, really. That being said, this game is wonderful. And if you're one of those poor unlucky souls who has no idea what we're talking about, you can enjoy this game too. You just might not understand why others are giggling in delight. Upcoming Ricochet member meetup. Events. Las Vegas, July 21st. Reagan Library, Simi Valley, California, July 23rd. These events are for Ricochet members only, but if you're not a member, you should join now. Once again, the content was stolen from The Daily Shot without their permission. This podcast is not, at least not yet, a production of Ricochet.com. Let's see if 2 Liters 2R can win its way into whatever Rob Long has cooked up to rival NPR. Written by Fred Cole. Edited by John Gabriel. Become a Ricochet member. Copyright 2017 Ricochet, all rights reserved. The Daily Shot is written and distributed by Ricochet.com.